have for you. All right, so what to say, how to sell UX to your boss, or how to answer tough questions from your boss. That's the theme of my talk. That's about me, not really interesting, but one thing, a warning. I'm passionate about one thing, and that is certification, UX certification. If you want to know more about that, that is not the theme of this talk. Get back to me during the breaks. I have a few other things that I want to share with you. They are really the basis for my talk. First of all, I hope that we all sincerely agree that if the users can't use it, it doesn't work. Number two, usability professionals must set a good example by making usable stuff. Now, what do I mean by that? We must make usable presentations. We must make usable usability test reports, and so on and so forth. In other words, we must speak the language of our users. And who are our users? Well, they're partly the end users, but more important, they are management. So in order to get heard, in order to get understood, we must speak the language of our management. So, question to you. What would you deliver if your boss asked you for a UX strategy plan? Now, I'm not going to quiz you about that. You can be quite patient. I have a suggestion here for you, but I hope that all of you, or most of you, would have a ready answer for this. You know what a strategy plan is. You know what should be in it. Now, here's my take at it, and it may not be perfect, but that at least is a beginning. Where do we want to get? Where are we now? What can we gain from going there? And so on and so forth. By the way, it should also include a list of the KPIs you will use to measure the ROI of your UX activities. Now, that is management language. And of course, you all know what a KPI and ROI, what they are. If not, contact me during the break or ask one of the other great people in this audience. Right, so how to sell UX to your boss and your colleagues. Now, before I can give you an example, and I have brought a few specific examples, I will just introduce the concept of usability maturity. It is essential for understanding what to say to your boss and what not to say to your boss. Right, so usability maturity, the definition, it's a level of understanding and implementation of a systematic human-centered design process within an organization. I hope we can agree more or less on that. There are many models. Jacob Nielsen has one on his website. It has 8 steps. I think it's rather unusable. I shortened it to just 4 steps because I think that captures the essence of it. The basic level, incomplete, that's the worst. I'll provide a little more detail about each of these levels in just a moment. Performed, organized, and innovating, or I could also say that's usability nirvana. Right, so, but there's more to it. Anyone recognize a situation like this one? Cowboy programmers don't need no stinking usability. I've heard that once or twice. I've also encountered this situation here from Dilbert. Dilbert comes with a test report, and the boss simply dismisses it. I wish all of my problems were this easy to solve. So, unfortunately, there's more to it. In practice, the model contains an additional step, worse and worst, outright ridicule, hostility towards usability. But let me get back to the more civilized area of the 4 steps that I had. Oh, sorry about that. Usability is fine if it comes for free, but no one is committed to delivering it. That's the lowest level of usability, and not a lot happens about it. It's fine to talk about it, but nothing really happens. The next step, performed. Usability is achieved by enthusiastic individuals using ad hoc processes. So there are a few engaged people who do something. It's rather unsystematic. Some projects have good usability, other projects have little usability. Next step, the human-centered design process is planned, monitored, and adjusted, and there is a budget for it. It is officially recognized that the company does UX activities. And then the final step, cross-organizational UX is a natural part of development. UX is not dependent on any specific person. As I said, you can, as I said, the picture here on my monitor just disappeared. That's what surprised me. You can put in additional steps, but I really think this is the key part of it. Right, so an important part of usability is audience engagement. So I would like to invite you to participate in this small quiz here. What can you do to boost usability maturity in an organization that is at level incomplete or performed, the two lowest levels that I had just a moment ago? Now you can participate in this quiz by going to shakespeak.me and logging in with Anna, and then voting for two of these choices. It's totally anonymous. I cannot check who you are, but just to make sure that you understand a little bit better what this is about, please go in and make one or two choices. Oh, good. Votes are coming in. This is an incredibly complicated system, so I'm always surprised every time when votes actually start coming in. Very good. Yes, let's take a look at the results. Very good. The answers that I sympathize with, and they are the green ones, actually are the majority. The number one thing to take away from this is if you want to increase usability maturity in an organization that has a low usability maturity, do usability testing. It may seem awkward that you start by testing. You'd probably much rather do interviews and so on, but you won't get very far with that. So run usability tests and ask the stakeholders to participate in the planning of the usability test. If you don't do that, they will dismiss the results of the usability test by saying the moderator was wrong, the test participants were wrong, the test tasks were wrong, and so on and so forth. Develop a prototype and run usability tests of it. Ask management and staff to use their own products and services in a realistic environment. So here's another suggestion, one that you don't see so often in the literature, at least not in the literature that I look at. What can you do to boost usability maturity in an organization that is at level managed? And my advice is to market UX, make sure that you sell UX. You have to do specific things to tell people what you have accomplished. Focus on user journeys in addition to product UX, write standards for UX work, and above all, keep sharp. Make sure that your abilities in usability testing, in interviews, in writing user journey maps, in doing heuristic inspections are up to date. It's not enough that you ask your colleagues, do you think I did my last usability test okay? No, you have to have a neutral outsider to help you. Right, so I promised the title of my talk is, how do you sell UX to your boss? Well, let me introduce the boss. Here he is. So, what's he saying? Well, the boss is saying, I want a carousel on the home page. Now, I don't know about you, but I have shown this to many audiences, and it seems to be quite a familiar situation to many people. Giles just mentioned it. I want it black. This is slightly different. So, but it occurs so often that we have a name for it. It's called a hippo. It's a highest paid person's opinion. So the question I usually get at this point is, Rolf, how do you kill a hippo? Well, I don't recommend that, but I do have a few recommendations for how you can tame hippos. And that's the rest of my talk. So the boss says, I want the carousel on the home page. Now, I'm going to return to this dialogue several times, but here's first the take from my highly respected colleague, Jared Spool. Why do you want that? The UXer says, boss, adding the carousel will give us more places to advertise the new content we're providing users. The UXer, how does that make for a better experience for our readers? They'll know about new things. How does knowing about new things make for a better experience? Well, I'm not so sure. That's not the way it happens in my world. Bosses don't respond like that. This is a very well-behaved boss. I would say it's rather something like this. The two first ones are the same as before. The boss says, because I know what our customers want. And I think I'm pretty good at having the right discipline to think through whether a lot of other people are going to want it too. Now that is what real bosses say. I stole that quote from someone. Does anybody know who actually said this?
Steve Jobs.
Say it again.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Very good. Yes. And some bosses know that, and they think they are Steve Jobs too. Right. So it's slightly adapted quote from Steve Jobs at Apple. Yes. So here's a more realistic one, and then one that goes in the direction that I would recommend. And you may disagree with that. You may have a better scenario or a better answer. If you have that, I have pound notes ready for those of you who can come up with a better, more realistic scenario than I have, actually, really. So the boss says, I want the carousel on the home page. The UXer, yes, sir. Since we already usability tested the current design without the carousel, I hope you don't mind that we usability test a revised homepage with the carousel with just a few users. The boss, I don't think it will cause any problems, but if you insist, how much will it cost, by the way? And that is where you need to have an immediate, precise answer ready for the boss. How much it will cost and how long time it will take. Yes. Basis for us is data is important, opinions are unimportant. The two previous talks have been saying that again and again. We must have data. So where do we get data from? We get data from usability tests. We get opinions. Everyone has opinions. But we can make a difference by showing that we are not, that we have something else to offer. Everyone has opinions. UXers have specific data. Yep. So the next scenario, we shift the scene a little bit. This is a bit lengthy. I'm not going to read it aloud to you. Please read this scenario. Have you all finished reading it? More or less. All right, so let's move on. Here's a quiz question. What are the causes of Paul's troubles? You can vote for up to 3 choices. Yeah, the votes are still pouring in, so I'll wait another 15 seconds. Well, I'm very glad to see that so many people are participating actively in this, because usability is so easy if someone else explains it. But once you have to answer quiz questions like this one, it becomes a little more complicated. So here it is. Yeah, okay. Actually, the reason why I included this, this exercise here, this scenario, is that sometimes the reason why the UX's results are not accepted by the community is that the UXers are not sufficiently sharp. So I think that Paul, the trouble here lies partly with Paul. Let me show you the scenario once again. They have the usability lab in a separate building. Not a good idea. It should be where the development team is. Their user interfaces are lousy. He's actually criticizing his stakeholders. Now, it may well be, but then he should shut up about it. We document everything. Our most recent report had 50 pages. That's much too long. That's an unusable usability test report. I created a 15-minute video where I described, that is a talking face video of 15 minutes, totally unusable. So part of the problem here, perhaps a big part of the problem, lies with Paul himself. So be humble. Insist on having your skills and procedures checked regularly to keep sharp. I think that is the real cause of Paul's problems. Right, so my final case here of beans and noses. No matter how much you try, you can't stop people from sticking beans up their noses. Jared Spool said that, and I totally agree with him. Jared moves on with this one. Oh, here it is again. The boss, I want the carousel on the home page. The UXer, why do you want that? Because it's the right thing to do. How does that make for a better experience for our users? They'll love it. How do you know they will love it? My experience says that many will consider it a nuisance, and then the knife comes out. Sorry if I hurt your professional pride, but that is what we will do. Right. And, like Jared says, that's when I move on. And he says a lot more to it, which I won't read aloud. Now, I totally realize that this may not be an option for you. It's so easy for me to stand here up on the stage and say this. But keep in mind that perhaps your services in some situations are better utilized elsewhere. On the other hand, I have seen organizations where management was just slow to respond. Even if the captain is willing, it takes a long time to change the course of a supertanker. The figures that I have heard is 2 years, or perhaps even more. So give it some time. Don't be impatient. Don't give up just because everyone is not just saying snap, snap, snap. Of course we will do everything that you say. So the final one I have here, my summary, shameless self-promotion. The multiple choice questions that you have seen here are good examples of what you need to know to pass CPUX certifications. And then there is a reference. End of shameless self-promotion. That is what I've been trying to say. Thank you very much for your attention. And it seems that I have a little time for questions, if you will allow.
Of course.
Yes. Are there any questions? And I would like to repeat the challenge. If you have better answers to this, I want a carousel on the homepage challenge, by all means, send an email to me, rolf@molich.dk, or contact me elsewhere. I'd be very interested in seeing if you have better suggestions for what to say to the boss. Any questions? Yes, there's one way in the back.
At what point do you actually make the decision to say, there's nothing else I can do, I've tried everything, it's time to actually take my skills elsewhere? Like, what is the point where you have to accept that you can't change anything versus how do I persevere, or should I persevere?
Right. So you're asking for how long should you wait? How much patience should you give? Well, like I said, I had a colleague who waited for 2 years. And then she finally said, I'm tired of people sticking beans up, of managers sticking beans up their noses. Now, on the day when she left, management announced a lot of things that would have made her stay. But at that time, she said, no, I've got a new and better job at this time. So I would say in the order of about 2 years. But make sure that you provide usable information about the steps that you want them to take. And yeah. Yes. Any other questions? No? Well, then I suppose we're finished. Thank you very much for your attention.